Hey folks, before we begin today's show, I want to give a quick shout out to Idle Courses Academy. If you're looking to transition into the corporate instructional design space, you need the right guidance to do so. Dr. Sargent and her team have done an incredible job with focusing on what's important to be a corporate instructional designer, like storyboarding, ID models and theories, authoring tools, project management tactics, and more. They even cover how to make your resume and portfolio stand out from the crowd and have an impressive completion rate with their students working at organizations like Google, Salesforce, GM, Uber, Walmart, and Amazon. Also, you won't be going through this learning journey alone. You'll be studying alongside other aspiring instructional designers, as well as working with experienced mentors and coaches. And as an added bonus, you'll get a free copy of my ebook, What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. So check out the industry-recognized program that's showing up in job descriptions as preferred training and education by going to idlecourses.com/academy. Enrollment for the next cohort opens up soon, March 21st. So use the promo code Luke to save $88 off your enrollment in the Academy. And now, let's start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome on into your Certified Learning Nerd podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm an author, blogger, podcaster, and the senior instructional designer and program manager for MIT. My purpose, my passion is to help you make the online learning experience super fantastic for you and for your students. And you can find all my information over at drlukehobson.com. One thing that I love that I really haven't been so public about is entrepreneurship. I find it fascinating and motivating to hear from others of how they took one small idea inside of their heads and then it manifests into a product or service that's now enjoyed by consumers. I found myself accidentally going down this entrepreneur path with my own brand. As of this moment, I have a membership for professional development for instructional designers, my own courses over at EduFlow, a book, and I've done a number of workshops, presentations, and consulting work. The thing is, this was never the plan, and I accidentally sort of gave myself a second full-time job with all of my other projects. And I know for a fact that I'm not alone in this, specifically within the educational world and the L&D world. I talked with many of you in this space, from instructional designers, learning experience designers, professors, training managers, instructors, and you've been working hard on your brand, and now you want to be able to successfully launch a product or a service. You've been coming to me with questions about, well, how do I market my book? How do I start an email list? And a bunch of other fantastic questions. But once again, to be transparent, I am not an expert on entrepreneurship. I have made plenty of mistakes and assumptions along the way. There have been some times where I think that you, as the listener, is going to love a podcast episode, and then the statistics tell me that I was dead wrong. Other times, I think something is cool and innovative, so I share it, I write about it in the blog or podcast, and I put it out there, but I just have no idea how it's going to be received, and then all of a sudden, it does really well. A good example of this is actually the last episode of the podcast that was about gamification for online courses, but doing something a bit different with choosing your own adventure with learning paths and with being able to change the difficulty levels. I honestly thought that that one was going to be kind of meh, but I didn't think it was going to go so well. But your responses clearly proved me wrong, which is a very long way of saying that I don't have all the answers. And I wanted to bring on a guest that does have the answers specifically for educators and for instructional designers to help them on their path towards entrepreneurship. And that is why I'm so excited that today we have on Dr. Barbi Honeycutt for today's episode. You might know her from the Lecture Breakers podcast, or perhaps many of the books that she has written about as well, and for everything else that she does online. She's just absolutely incredible. Her story is awesome, it's inspiring, and most importantly, for the fact is that it's real. There are many people out there who claim to be these amazing and fantastic entrepreneurs about how they quit their job overnight and they found immediate success, and then they brag about how many cars they have. And yeah, that's not what today's show is about. This is going to be about real tips to help educators like yourself to learn more about entrepreneurship. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Here is the one and only Dr. Barbi Honeycutt. Barbi, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Luke, it is so great to be on your podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Absolutely. I am so super stoked that we're finally able to do this. I know we've been talking about it for what feels like years at this point in time, honestly.
Right.
Even though I think that I've only known you for probably a year and change.
I think you're right.
Oh my gosh, time is just so weird right now. I have no idea what day, time, or week it is. It's just all kind of like a blur at this point with everything via Zoom and working from home. So just super. But once again, though, so excited that you are here. And for those who actually don't know who you are, Barbi, can you just please introduce yourself to the audience? Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. So the short sentence is that I help educators create engaging learning experiences. And the main people that I serve are professors and educators in higher education. So I do a lot of work with I'm with instructors and professors at all different stages of their career. And we talk about teaching. So how can we teach effectively? How can we connect with our students? How can we create spaces that are engaging, student-centered, interactive, fun, and meaningful? So all of those things wrapped up into my work. So I guess if you were to give me a title, I guess it would be maybe like an instructional coach, maybe a faculty development colleague. And so I really like to try to, help faculty celebrate the work that they're already doing in the classroom. That's great. And then kind of take it to the next level.
Wonderful. I love it. And one of the big things, too, that I have found so impressive from everything that you actually do, amongst all the amazing things we're going to be talking about this evening, but also as a fact, is that I can just tell from speaking with you and hearing about like the entrepreneur spirit with everything and seeing of what you have done has just been so amazing to see everything that you have accomplished. And I keep on talking to more folks right now in the instructional design space and the educational space, and they're seeing me do a couple of different things with the blog, the book, the podcast, and all this stuff. And they assume that I am an expert in entrepreneurship, and I am not. So I wanted to bring on an expert, hence you, to come in and talk about this, because I want to make sure that the people are getting the best information about everything, and to make sure that you can actually enlighten us about all this good stuff. So I would love, Barbi, to start like with your journey about everything with entrepreneurship. It seems like everyone kind of has like a different path of how they fell into this world and stumbled into this. So how did you find entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not an expert. I learn something every single day, it seems. But, so I started my business part-time in 2011. And I was working at a university full time, and I was like, I just want to like see what could happen, and I think you're right. I have always had that entrepreneurial spirit. Back in college as an undergrad, I had my own after school business for kids. I did a lot of after school programming. So even back then, I was already like tapping into that sort of create my own thing. And my parents, they were very entrepreneurial. They had their own business when I was very young. And so I kind of saw that as well. So I think it's just in my blood, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so 2011, I said, you know what, I want to try speaking. And so in the work that I do in faculty development and professional development, kind of that traditional model is for people to, prior to COVID, they would, bring you to their campus, kind of fly you in, and you do a workshop or a keynote or something like that. And then you fly back home, and I would continue my work and my job. And that was fine. But man, once I got a taste for that, it was like, okay, I want to do that. Like, I want this to be my life. Like, I want to do things on my own terms. I was battling the bureaucracy that I'm sure many of us know when we work in big institutions. We had a change in leadership that was not a good match for me. And it was like, you know what, it's time. And I guess what sparked me or kicked me in the butt to do it full time was my son was born in 2015. And I knew that when he was born, I wasn't going back. Like, I knew that I was going to do this on my own terms. So, but even if I wasn't becoming a parent, I think I was at that point where I was like, I'm done with doing this on somebody else's terms. I'm ready to do this on my own. So that's a little bit of my journey. I don't know if you wanted me to follow up, but I can talk about that part all day.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, like the one thing that I was going to ask about is just from that is kind of seeing the trend about how people in education are now like starting to gravitate towards things as far as for entrepreneurship. And I know from what you just said too, is that for some of us, we've done speaking engagements or consulting or some freelance work or, something along the side. But now it seems to be expanding. And now that you're thinking about this in 2022, do you know why that is? Like, what is it with education and like, why does it fit well into the entrepreneurial space?
This is such a good question. So like I think there's a couple of different things. So one, I think that educators, no matter what hat you wear, if you're attracted to the education space, whether that's an instructional designer, a professor, a faculty development professional, IT support, whatever that is that you are like always wanting to be in a space where people are excited about learning. That right there is amazing because that shows that you are a good learner yourself, which entrepreneurs need to be, right? We're always learning something new. My business has changed so much in the last 24 months, and I love the direction it's headed, but I've had to stay in that place where I'm constantly learning new things. And so if we've come up in a place where that's nurtured and fostered and awarded and celebrated, then I think we carry that into our entrepreneurial journey. We take that with us. The other thing too is, man, the educators that I know and the instructional designers that I know are so like creative and innovative with the way they look at the world. And we need that, right? That's how big businesses are built, small businesses, whatever it is you want to do, like we need that energy. And I think many of us who are attracted to this space bring that with us from education and just being curious about the world around us and saying, what problem can I help people solve? And that's the number one thing you have to do as an entrepreneur is help people solve problems. But then like the other thing that's happening is I think that people have seen, especially in the last 24 months, is like there is a need for instructional designers and people who know how people learn because we've been doing this work for 20 years. We know how people learn. We know how people learn in the online space, but it wasn't until we were all just shoved in front of the computers during COVID that it was like, wait a minute, they've already mastered this. Wait a minute, those are the people I need to turn to. And so it's just opened up huge opportunities for like instructional designers, educators, people who know about learning to step into this space and like just say, here I am. Now it's like our time to shine, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I certainly can relate to that too because that was something that was kind of staring at me in the face. Was just like, hey, I have all this information inside of my head. I really should share this with the internet. I'm like, I feel like I should do this, and that in turn ended up leading up to like all of these different things that I now have. But
Mhm.
that was never a goal. It was just like, hey, I want to help out all these people because clearly there's a need for it. And it's crazy because I know that I am not the only one. There's many of us in this field who are doing all these incredible things. And a lot of people too who are doing stuff behind the scenes. You don't even know about it from different types of freelance work and consulting and all these other different types of activities where it's just like, oh yeah, this actually is a real thing. And I feel like we're busier than ever, but in a good way because
Mhm.
now busy is being super good.
Well, I'm glad you said service too. You put that word in there that you wanted to kind of serve or be of service to people, and I didn't put that in my list of things, but you're absolutely right. Those of us who are in the education space, that's what we want to do. We want to help. We want to serve, and that's a huge part of being an entrepreneur as well. Is how you combine that problem solving with that service piece. And so I'm so glad you mentioned that, and it's true, and maybe that's why it's all kind of coming together and becoming just there's just so many opportunities right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that kind of makes sense because we love teaching others. So I can easily see how this now in turn says, like, oh, but now I can teach about my specialty, which is
Uh-huh.
online learning and how people learn and how to make something actually relevant and engaging and meaningful and not just be super boring and watching someone to go through a lecture and then do a discussion board and an essay and then repeat. Like,
Right.
there's so much more we could do.
Exactly.
So no, so it makes sense. So what I wanted to also ask you about too is the fact that like while we're talking about all these things and obviously it makes sense, like it's literally in front of us to go and say like, hey, you should actually go and do this thing. There's also this entire side of the house though, as far as for with confidence. in believing that you can actually go and do the thing. It is
Mhm.
very much a completely different mentality to being like, I think I can do it, to then actually going and building a brand and an email list, and you start to do campaigns. Like, that's a completely different thing. For you, was there a light bulb moment that gave you that confidence that you're like, you know what, I actually can do this? I know you said that once your son was born, you're like, now I need to do it. But did anything feed your confidence as well to keep you
Yeah.
keep on going?
I do have a story. So
Ah,
in 2011, so 2010, I knew I wanted to try this speaking thing because I'd seen other people do it. I was in the place on a campus where I was the person hiring the speakers to come to our campus. And I'm like, what the heck? I can do that, you know? And so I knew the business side of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna flip that role and I want to be the speaker. And so by 2011, I had built just basic, here a basic website. Here's Barbie. This is what I do. Very, very, very basic. And I wrote a guest blog post, and that guest blog post was posted on in a big on a big website for people who do what I do, and it got a lot of attention. It got a lot of social media sharing, and uh, next thing I know, I have a person contacting me to say, "Hey, will you come to our campus and do our keynote in August 2011?" I'm like, "Okay," but here's the thing, Luke. I was 35 years old. I'd never been on an airplane before. I was terrified. You just have no idea. I was so scared of flying, and that I knew was holding me back, but it was just a fear that I had had, but I'm like, "You know what? If I'm gonna be a speaker, if I'm gonna do this, I gotta overcome this fear." So booked the plane ticket, terrified on the plane, the whole trip, going, coming, all of it, and there's a lot of stories I can share within that. But I did it. And then like just a spark just lit up. And I'm like, this is what I got to do right now. Like, this is it. And I had to face that fear. And so I guess that's one piece of advice is like, do the thing you think you can't do, right? Just try it, see if you can do it. It's so funny because people are like, wait a minute, you didn't have any fear of standing up in front of 700 faculty members at a campus, but you didn't want to get on an airplane. I'm like, yep. So I had no fear of public speaking, which is like the number one fear. So it's really interesting. You got to face that fear. And I think from that, overcoming that and really working through that helped me build my confidence. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this now. So I guess that's my little story. And my motivational thing is like, get on the plane, right? Do the
which
thing.
I find hilarious, by the way, because I am also not a fan of flying. I really don't enjoy it. I'm like, which I have now been so thankful that I can do public speaking engagements in my office. It has
Yep.
been wonderful. I'm just going to keep on doing this as much as I possibly can. I didn't know that about you, though, as far as for not having any fear of public speaking. Were you
Yep.
always that way? Or did
No,
you?
no, no. When I was
Yeah.
an undergrad in college and I had to take the public speaking class, oh no, terrified, terrified. I don't know. I think somewhere along the way when I knew that I wanted to teach, and I've kind of always known I wanted to teach. I'm like, okay, this thing you have to overcome. Like you can't be a teacher and not be able to speak publicly, So I worked really hard on that, and I also when I was at the university, I would teach workshops. And teaching shows up in lots of different ways in a person's life. Teaching doesn't just have to be a formal classroom where you're grading students and giving lectures. I was doing workshops. I was helping graduate students kind of navigate graduate school. I was helping postdocs figure out how to teach their first class. And so there was teaching. Teaching can take on many forms, and that helped build my confidence as well. Is doing sort of I was teaching workshops 3 or 4 a week, and so kind of overcame that fear that way.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I know that for me personally, my biggest boost of confidence has always been collecting the feedback from people who either attend my workshops or my students in my courses or whatnot, because I know then that it actually hit home, that the message did resonate because someone was willing to actually go and dedicate hours of their life to either listening to me babble on the internet or to actually go and be a part of the course, which is like even more time. And that's something that is just so incredible when you collect feedback that obviously, as for even for public speaking, that A, you're going to get better because you're going to get your different tips and thinking about the experience, what you can do the next time around. But B, when you actually hear from the target audience themselves about, yes, you were great, or like, hey, have you ever thought about doing maybe this instead? It's just super helpful.
Agreed.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny too. we did a course on not that, we did a workshop the other day for EduFlow Academy, and it's always funny because there are so many people who are inside of this workshop and they come and attend, and I can tell right from the start who has seen me give a public speech before and who hasn't, because like when I'm doing a workshop, because I only have you for an hour and this is something on Zoom, I crank up my volume times 10. I'm super loud. I try to be really passionate and energetic and make people be like, wow, that's not a normal presentation. And for some people, they love that. And then there's always one or two people where they're like, wow, I hate that guy. And I'm like, I'm not for everyone. It's okay.
That's okay.
It's like, you know what? It is what it is. Like, I would rather have it be different. I would rather you feel like you're a part of the conversation and that you're enjoying something and you're just not listening to me be monotone and like talking at a low pace and, blah, blah, blah. So, no, it's so funny to see how public speaking is kind of transformed over this time frame and what it is that we do. It's really, really interesting. And I'm curious to see where it's going to go from here as well, too. Because
yeah, and it's really hard. I mean, you talk about kind of building that confidence and overcoming the challenges. And so for me, a podcast was like impossible because I've always been a teacher where I was like, I have to see my audience. Like I need them in the room with me, eye to eye. I walk around the room, I interact, and we're working on things together. It's very hands-on. I always have the worksheets and the workbooks. Like that is what I know. And to redesign all that for an online space, that challenge was a challenge in itself, which we can talk about. But, I do have a podcast called the Lecture Breakers Podcast. And hence, we're breaking up lectures and creating more engaging learning experiences. And that was a scary thing for me. So I took an online course, very meta here. I took an online course to learn how to create a podcast and then was terrified when I hit record and put the first episode out there. And it's taken a long time to get comfortable with talking to the wall or talking to the camera or talking in my mic and not having someone there to respond. And you just kind of have to keep practicing and pushing forward and see what happens. But so many opportunities have come my way because of my podcast.
I understand that. Did I ever tell you, but I deleted my first 5 podcast episodes because I hated them so much?
No, but I totally relate.
I was like, oh, it don't sound like me at all. Like, who is this person speaking? And they still exist. I had to redo them all first and foremost. And then I put them online and now like you can still go back and listen to them. And I'm like, cringe. But
I like it. I like it when the pros out there share their like beginning stages because we only see the polished version, and there's such a journey to get to there and nobody ever shows that, right? I want to see the behind the scenes. I want to know that it's okay that I'm not starting out perfect.
Oh yeah, of course, especially because, as you said, like if I go and go on Google or I YouTube something right now, I am seeing the polished product. And from some people, they have a team of like 15 people behind the scenes doing the editing and the mixing and the mastering and the scripting and all this other different stuff. And I think about just me recording an episode in my bedroom closet. And I'm like, we're not the same. Like, give me some hope that I could get there maybe someday, or at least half as good as you kind of thing. So yeah, and I love talking about the behind the scenes and the failures and the screw ups because it's real. Because it's what people actually need to be able to hear to know that we're not robots and we're definitely not perfect for being podcasters. So well, thinking about things that kind of like for surprising the audience, you probably just heard some of those things and we're like, I didn't know that. One thing that I actually want to be able to talk about with entrepreneurship is just kind of things that we didn't expect about this journey. Was there anything that surprised you about this that you didn't think about it from the beginning and all of a sudden you're in this and you're like, oh, I never thought about it like that before?
So I guess I can talk a little bit about kind of how I stumbled into doing this full time, like the kick in the butt that I got. I mean, it was becoming a parent, but before that, I knew that I was going to do this work. And I just remember I had this, it's like seared in my mind. It was like, I think I was maybe 3 months pregnant and 4 months pregnant, something like that. And I remember putting away the baby clothes in the closet, like getting ready for this new person to join my life. And I was putting, all the little onesies up and all the little socks and all the things that come with the baby. And I was doing that and I was listening to a podcast. And it was Pat Flynn's podcast. And for those who don't know, he does the smart passive income everything, podcast courses and everything. But I stumbled onto his podcast. I had never listened to a podcast in my life, and I put it on my what is the iTunes, the Apple, like iTunes, like I put it there. That's how long ago it was. Like it was all that was brand new, and I'm like, I'm going to see what a podcast is, and you know, plug that in and listen to it, and just listening to someone else talk about how they are living life on their own terms, they're doing it the way they want to, and his whole story, I was just so inspired. And then, I quit my job like 6 months later and did
Wow.
it full time. So, I mean, like, it's the thing I needed. So I think for me, that was surprising that other people out there were already doing this and I needed to go find them. Like, it was hard to find them at the time. So this was more than a decade ago or 10 years ago, I guess. And I didn't know where to go find these people. I don't even know how I found Pat Flynn's podcast. Like, I couldn't even tell you how that popped up or what I was even searching for. And so I think it was a lot harder then to find the people, and find the support and people who do what you want to do. So I think for me, maybe that's one of the surprising things is just like, you don't step into it and these communities are already made. At that time, they weren't anyway. Now there are communities that exist to support us all through this journey. And I think that's amazing. And I think the other thing too is how much once I left my job, my whole life just became aligned with what was important to me. Where I always thought that my career was so important and climbing the ladder was so important and having the big title was so important and the security and all those things that were told. And like, as soon as I did this on my own terms, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need a ladder. I can build my own. I don't need a title. I can be whatever I want to be. I like everything just shifted. And suddenly I'm spending my days with my son and working a little bit in the evenings. Yeah, I did some weekend work to help build this business up. But like suddenly my life revolved around like what the way I wanted it to be rather than, okay, I'm going to work at 8, I'm getting off at 5. This is what I'm doing. I'm attending all these staff meetings. Like I just didn't realize. I didn't realize until I did it on my own that like this is what life could be.
No, absolutely. And same thing too. I don't know how I found Pat Flynn's
Yeah,
podcast.
I have no idea.
I have no clue either. I have not the slightest clue. Actually, no, I take that back. I do know how I found about his podcast. I was searching for ways of how to make a podcast. He pops up on YouTube. And ever since then, yeah, he's been absolutely incredible to listen to. And it's
Well,
such
he dominates the space now,
he
I
dominates
think he
everything,
started.
Barbie.
Yeah, and I
He's
mean,
everywhere.
well, and that's just it, right? He didn't start there. He
Right.
started, and he still has his old episodes up too. Speaking of the journey, back from I think he started in 2009, maybe. So he was very new in the space. People were like, "What the heck is even a podcast?" And just I didn't find him until 2014, and he was getting pretty good at that point and already doing things that I couldn't even imagine at that point. And so, yeah, it's really interesting how people have this journey that they share, but we just don't know about it until we step into those spaces.
Right. And I think that's something that definitely surprised me too, is the fact that there are real people who are entrepreneurs. And it's not just the people who, unfortunately, if you Google about entrepreneurship, you see people who are talking about like immediately quit your job with no plan, get this thing,
Right.
buy my course. And you're like,
Right.
no, how about I don't? Because I don't trust you. Who are you? What have you done? Kind of a thing. And then realizing later on in life where I'm like, oh, there's actually normal, wonderful human beings who are indeed entrepreneurs that you can meet online, as we were talking about actually before coming on to this call, where I do have a group of folks who I talk with every Tuesday, just kind of about setting goals and doing accomplishments, where like I will literally tell them that, hey, I'm going to record a podcast episode. I'm going to write this blog. I'm going to do this thing. And even as I was writing the book, I mean, they were my biggest cheerleaders of saying like, oh my gosh, you wrote chapter 1, 2, and 3. Like, oh my, what are you doing? Like, how is this going? This is fantastic. And that motivation from having people hold me accountable as far as for trying to just do stuff on my own was so different. I never experienced that until talking to other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, right. It's not competitive. I'm in a couple of mastermind groups myself, and it's not competitive. Whereas I guess when I was at working in a department at an institution, in this case a university, sometimes it can be a little competitive. You're like, how much do I want to share with people who are also competing for the same title that I'm chasing, or whatever. And, that might not be the case for everybody, but I could see where that kind of thinking could, kind of hold you back. And I have found very supportive spaces online for people who do what I want to do. And they're there. You have to find them, but yeah, they're certainly there. And there's more now than ever before.
Yes. And that is definitely the other thing as far as for thinking about surprises of an entrepreneurship is the fact that if you don't have those people, it's very lonely.
Mhm.
It's kind of weird because you're like, oh, I'm just working on my stuff by myself again for the 200th time, have no one to talk about it. Because if you don't have a group, you'll talk to your parents, your partner, but then like sometimes you're kind of weirded about it to talk about it with your coworkers
Right.
because you're like, well, I don't know about like if you're thinking that I'm blowing off work to go and do my other side project stuff, because that's definitely not true. But I could see how you would think that if I'm posting something on LinkedIn at noon, you're like, wait a minute, what do like? So there's a lot of gray area where until I found my people, I was like, okay, now I feel like this is a cool thing. But until then, it was kind of weird. And that was actually something that I've heard from some of the new folks going into this entrepreneurship world is actually the word that I keep on hearing is icky. That selling ideas and products and services, it has like a negative reputation for some reason. And what I keep on hearing is that people kind of feel icky about it because it's different. At no other point in time during your professional career are you actually selling just you and your own ideas. It's usually something on behalf of the organization or, whatever you are doing or wherever you are working. Did you ever face this challenge of kind of feeling weird about promoting yourself and trying to do all these things as an individual?
That's such a good question. I have not felt this, but I do understand it, because there's so many issues that we have around money. Like the money mindset piece is a huge piece of being an entrepreneur. What do I charge? Is that enough? Is it more? Like there's just I could do a whole episode on just money mindset stuff. So I totally get it. I guess that I didn't feel it because my first venture into this space was speaking, and people get paid to speak. And like it was a natural conversation to have. Like I didn't feel sleazy about it. But I do think that I could see where if I were trying to just jump straight into selling a course or a membership or something like that, that maybe that would feel that way, because you have to build trust with your audience. And the sleaziness or the ickiness, I think, comes because there's so many people in this space who are like the marketing, like they're just pushing their message so hard, and they're doing it from a private jet that is just a green screen. Like
Yeah.
there's so much that's not authentic. So I think if you're coming from a place where it's authentic, it's a conversation that feels good to you, it feels good to the person that you're working with or your potential client, then it doesn't feel sleazy or icky. But I do get that, and I will say too that maybe I bypassed this because I started with speaking, and then the very next thing that I monetized, if you will, was that I wrote a little book. It's 101 ways to flip your class, and I sold it for $10. And I would sell it when I would go to conferences. I would set up at a booth. I'd be the keynote speaker, or I'd do a workshop. And then I'd say, hey, come to my booth and get my book for $10. I would just sell it. And there was no ickiness in that because people are used to exchanging money for a physical book. And so I guess if those who are kind of feeling this way, maybe rethink what's the issue with money. And there's a lot of podcasts about money, that you can definitely go listen to for that. But also maybe if you would feel more comfortable selling something that's kind of in maybe your safe zone, like selling a book or selling speaking, maybe that would help with some of that.
Did you have to change your messaging or communication at all once you started to do more things with social media? Because I know that's something that for like the ickiness, quote unquote, kind of thing, is that it seems like on social media, if you were talking about whatever you might be talking about for a product or service, it seems very much like, oh, me. Like we're talking all about me because it's my channel and my product and my thing.
Right.
Did you ever have to like do some experimenting to be like, no, this is who I actually am as a person is genuine and authentic. Like I know this can help somebody. So let's talk about the real benefits and like try to get away from other wording.
Yeah, my journey through rebranding has been ongoing. I feel like I am constantly sort of redefining what I'm doing. I have pivoted my business one time significantly, and I'm about to get ready to do it again.
Hmm.
So when I first started out, my business was Flip It Consulting, and I that was just kind of, I don't know if we'll talk about the evolution of the business idea and the brand, but I started with this idea of Flip It Consulting, and stepping into social media, I went kicking and screaming. Like I did not understand social media. I did not understand Twitter at all. I didn't understand why people were putting themselves out there like that. But from a business perspective, I totally understood it. I'm like, okay, now I see how you build your tribe or your audience or your clients or your colleagues. But it took me a long time to feel comfortable with social media. And I'm only right now on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I do have a Facebook group for my podcast. And I feel okay in those spaces. I have not ventured out into all of the other ones. I just can't keep up. So I tend to know my lane.
Yeah, I'm right there
But
with
yeah,
you.
yeah, in terms of messaging, I can talk a little bit about like how my business is evolving and kind of where I started. But yeah, I'm constantly tweaking those messages and trying to show up as a person in these online spaces.
Well, my next questions for you were actually going to be about building your brand. So please feel free
Okay.
to dive on in as far as for any steps that you took successfully to build your brand or what you're doing now or anything else. Please feel free to talk away about branding.
Okay, and I'm definitely not a branding expert. I just try to, make all these messages and what I'm excited about kind of come together. But yeah, so I started with Flip It Consulting, and the flip actually means to focus on your learners by involving them in the process. So it's an acronym, and it's really my whole philosophy is built on active learning, student engagement, involving your students and your learners and letting them discover the journey and not constantly talking at them, like really engaging them. And that's always been my mission. So I named my business Flip It Consulting. That was in 2011. I would say in 2012, something came along that exploded across education called the flipped classroom. And I'm sure your listeners have heard about it because they're instructional designers and they have probably had to help educators do this. It was hitting the training, corporate training, it was hitting higher education, it was hitting K-12, it was everywhere. Well, the name of my business was Flip It Consulting. So people are like, cool, Barbie must know all about this flipped classroom stuff.
Ah,
And I
gotcha.
was like, okay, yeah, well, when I was reading about it, I was like, well, parts of this I do align with and they support my mission, but other parts of this I don't. So I'm going to go out there and be the voice that I am, which is, yep, some of this I agree with and some of this I don't. And I think some people really resonate with that because they were really seeing some problems with the way the flipped classroom model was being defined a decade ago. So that was an interesting way to grow my business. I did not mean for that to happen, but I had to constantly remind people that I'm in this conversation, but I'm going to bring you a different perspective. I'm not going to teach you the flipped classroom model that you might have heard about. So that was really interesting journey to share. And it gave me a lot of opportunity, but it's also a challenge, right? To not be defined by that, which led to my next rebrand. So I would say 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I realized that people know me by Flip Classroom. They know me by Flip It Consulting, flip, 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 right? And that was like the thing people knew me for. And that's fine, but I did not want to stay in that lane. I knew I wanted to do more. So I rebranded my whole business around my name, BarbiHoneycutt.com. And I knew that if I did that, I could do Flip Classroom stuff. Great. You still want to contact me for that? I got you. But I also wanted to do more active learning and more faculty development. I want to work with graduate students. I had all these other big plans. And so now under that brand, the brand that is Barbie, I can do any of those things. I even dabbled for a while with something called the Scholarly Entrepreneur, where I was working with other entrepreneurs in the education space who wanted to start their own business. And I dropped that because it was just a real departure from what my lane is, which is teaching. And so I haven't come back to that yet. But the beauty of it is I could do all that under my brand. Right. So that was a big shift in my thinking and in my business. And then now under that umbrella, I have the Lecture Breakers podcast and the Lecture Breakers virtual conference. And that exists as its own sort of mini brand under what I do. And then I also have a new one coming out called Your Teaching Coach, which will be a whole separate product and service that I'm going to be offering, again, under my brand.
That's amazing.
Is that too much? Is that too much of a story?
No, I was just thinking about that too. I was just like, I didn't know that, so I'm really glad that I asked about that, because branding to me is just so interesting. Clearly, I was not trying to be creative with branding my own stuff, where I'm like, nah, it's my name. I'm done. I don't want to try.
I like it. No, it's great.
It's the other thing on top of all that too, which made me be like, wow, not sure if I want to go down this again, is that I tried to trademark a thing that I'm not going to say, but I tried to trademark this thing, and I immediately got a cease and desist letter from a attorney, and I was like, oh, you have trademarked this thing. I see. Well, I don't want to get sued, so I'm going to pick my name going forwards, and I'm fine. But that was fun. For my first my first taste of personal branding, I was like, yay, lawyers. What a great time. I was like, yes, what a good time for everything. But it's so interesting, though, to hear about how you recognize what the market was doing, and then you actually, with lack of a better term, you flipped it to something different, which is so fascinating to hear, because now it's funny, when I think about you, I think of Lecture Breakers. Like, it
Yay.
is just exactly. It's like the branding has worked. It's exactly who I identify you with, is the entire topic of Lecture Breakers itself, which is fascinating. So like, it's clearly, your branding is clearly working, is what I'm trying to say. Obviously, it's like, it's gotten to that point. So that's fantastic. And now you're doing so many other things, which is kind of like mind-boggling to me in a way, as someone who also does a bunch of things, but you do even more things, as far as you've written 7 books. I think that's correct. You host a Lecture Breakers conference. You obviously teach, design your own courses. You do speaking events. So for many soon-to-be entrepreneurs, one of the things I always hear about is, how do you have the time to do all of these things? So one of the things I always mention too is that it's just like, well, it's not like I started them all at the exact same time. Like I would have exploded. It's impossible. So I would love to ask you about your journey with all of this. Is, how did you start this entire process and eventually get to hosting a conference and building all the courses and everything else? Like, what was your process to finally be able to arrive at everything with all of your different projects while maintaining your sanity?
Well, nobody says I've maintained my sanity, right?
Fair enough.
I do not have a beautiful path laid out in front of someone to say, here, do these things. I did very much follow my passion and my interest and my curiosity, as well as listening to my audience and trying to anticipate like what's coming. So speaking was like safe, because that's what faculty development is built on, that sort of model where, we fly in, we do a workshop and we leave, or this day and age, we, do a webinar and then we're done. So they're kind of like one-off events. And from that, I remember I had been listening to podcasts, and they were like, online courses is where it's at. And I'm like, well, I've been teaching courses for the last 20 years. So this seems like a natural evolution from what I'm doing. So I did that. So the first thing that I did, though, was not a course. I really like events. So I did a Flip It Summer Teaching Institute way back in like 2013 or 2012. It was very early in my business. And I loved that. So I would run 2 cohorts in the summer, and people would send their faculty. And when we would, do the flipped classroom work virtually. And that was great, and I was like, okay, I enjoy this, and I can see how I can scale my business with this. But I never let go of speaking. I kept on speaking. And so I'm doing speaking, and I'm doing these summer events. And that was fine. Then I learned about, well, all along I had been blogging, and I was getting so burned out on blogging. I was like, I cannot blog anymore. It got to the point where I couldn't even put a blog up once a month. Like, I was just to the point I did not want to write anymore. And so I stopped doing that. I made all of my blog posts sort of like evergreen, like they don't have dates on them. They're just topics. And I actually went through during my rebrand to barbihoneycutt.com, and I probably got rid of 75% of my old blog posts. And I stayed focused on the ones that had the most clicks or they're most important given where I was going. So I dropped the blogging. So that's an important lesson. Don't be afraid to let go of stuff. And instead, I picked up podcasting. And I'm like, all right, this I like. This is new. I can do this. It's not such a struggle. I'm not burned out on it. I'm going to do it till I burn out. So here we go. And I'm 116 episodes in, and I'm still enjoying it, you know. And that's another thing too. My podcast started weekly. So every single week, I am interviewing people. I am editing. I did all my editing. I did all the marketing around it. I did all the show notes. I did it all. And I did it for 100 episodes weekly. And at episode 100, I knew I cannot do this anymore at this pace. So I made two big changes. The first one is I switched my podcast to seasonal. So now I run it 2 times a year. And I also hired editors. Please edit my podcast for me. Best money I've ever spent is on editing. And Pat Flynn actually recommended the company for me to use for editing. And so it's been great. Now I'm re-energized. I'm refreshed. I cannot wait for season 3 to come out in March. And it's like, wow, this is exactly what I need to do. And I'm sharing all of these little steps because pay attention to what I did, right? I'm letting go of the things that were draining my energy. Or I am hiring somebody to take something off of my plate because I don't like to do that anymore. I'm burned out on it. And I am staying focused on the things that I enjoy doing and that give me passion. I'm like super excited to do. And I realize I can't do that for everything, but for the things that I can, that's what I try to do.
I love it. If I shake my head anymore, I'm going to get dizzy from agreeing with you so hard because I understand completely.
Mhm.
As someone who's also like, wow, I spend so much time editing and doing other things. Oh my gosh, I totally understand everything that you just said. Insane that you actually were able to delete. You said 75%.
Oh yeah, I do
Oh
a
my
lot of
gosh.
podcast episodes. Blog posts. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. I can't imagine what you went through trying to do that and to think about just which ones would survive as you're picking and choosing and trying to think about that. So,
Well, also part of that process, and I hired a VA. Okay, so here we go. This is something I was like, I am not going through all of these blog posts. I'm going to hire a VA. And so the VA went in and made a spreadsheet for me, and it gave me the title of the blog post and the number of downloads so that I could do a quick scan. I did a quick scan and said, get rid of these. These are not in alignment with where I'm headed for my business. These I want to rework or edit. And I had so much stuff around just flipped classroom language that I stripped some of that out and really started to focus on the new direction I was headed, breaking up lectures, active learning, putting my language back in there. And some of the flipped stuff still survived, but I really tried to do that and just had every blog post tight and clean. And so again, the VA went in and did that whole first pass for me because I was like, I can't even deal with this. This is too much. And then let's see, the conference came from my audience. So every year I send my audience a quick survey and just, it's a few questions just to ask, what are they interested in? What are they looking for when it comes to professional development, things like that. And I did not ask straight up for a conference, but in the open-ended piece, people were writing things like, really want to be able to connect with other people and like share ideas, like get together with people and share ideas. And I'm like, well, that's a conference. So I said, okay. So way back in like September of 2019, I was already planning a conference, a virtual conference back then, which nobody was doing at the time, Luke. The virtual conferences in higher ed were like not a thing.
Yeah.
But now they're everywhere, right? But so I had planned my conference from September 2019, and then it was going to come out in June of 2020. So of course, everyone in March of 2020 like hit the brakes on all of their conferences or were making quick changes to get them virtual. And I was like, nope, my conference is ready to go. Let's go. Everybody come to Barbie's conference, And so I was in the space when I needed to be, which was just really good timing. I mean, it's not like you can anticipate a pandemic, but what I did was listen to my audience and I took what they said and said, okay, I can turn this into a virtual conference. Here's what I'm going to do. And so I guess that's another tip maybe is to listen to your audience and ask them what they're looking for. And sometimes they know and sometimes they don't know. Like they didn't say conference, right? I just took their words and turned it into that.
Yes. I could not agree more with that last tip. It's a fantastic tip just to talk with the people. And whenever you're trying to think about, even thinking about like what topics you want to actually go and to talk about next, whether you're starting up a blog or a podcast or YouTube channel or, like whatever it is, just talk to people and ask and listen. Just let them go for it and let them do a brain dump of all the things that they're going through. Even some things I don't even need to ask because people are already sharing about what they want. I mean, even on LinkedIn, if I just go and scroll up and down my feed really quick, I can see what everyone is talking about for pain points. It's
Mhm.
clear. Like it's so clear because everyone is either so happy about something or they're so frustrated about something. And that was one of the things that I just made was about trying to go through the interviewing process and applying for jobs and just how to do it in a more effective manner. And what I talked about with that for a blog and a podcast did like super well, better than probably anything I put out in the last year, honestly. And it's because of the fact that people are struggling and
Mhm.
they're trying to go through and they're getting ghosted and we're getting like disheartened about everything because they're not hearing back and it's just not going well. And that's why it's like, yeah, all I have to do is go on LinkedIn and see that everybody is talking about this. And yeah, if I can help you, then like, here we go. Like it's kind of,
Yes.
yeah.
Social media has been the place where like now I use social media for my business in a way to do exactly what you just said. I'm scanning, looking for trends. What are people talking about? What are the pain points? I'll do that in Twitter. I'll do that on LinkedIn. And for me, Twitter has been more enlightening. And then my Facebook group. So my Lecture Breakers Facebook group is it's free, but I still make sure that I'm approving every person that comes in. So I'm keeping it very, very focused on the people who want to be there, you know. And then it has finally, after all this time, turned into a space where they're helping each other. And it truly is a community. And I am in there every day and I'm always asking questions and looking for the topics. And so every week I'll always post a new question. And sometimes they're just questions to build a community, but a lot of times they're questions to give me insight into like, what do I need to create next? Like, what's the next thing? What are they looking for? Where do they need help?
And as someone who is actually in your group, I can say that that is true. And
Thank you.
it's really cool to actually be able to see you ask a question and then like all of a sudden one of the next podcast episodes comes out and it's an expert in that field that's centered around that question.
Yep. I
Of
try really hard to do that.
yeah,
Yes.
you do fantastic at it. I'm always so impressed of how you're able to find these people within your network to talk about a very, very specific thing within education. Where I'm like, oh wow, I had no idea that XYZ person knows about all of these crazy things, and it's just yeah, it's absolutely so cool. But speaking of your brand though, with everything, I have to ask, what's next for Lecture Breakers? Any projects you can share that you are currently working on?
Yeah, so the Lecture Breakers Conference is back for 2022. I thought that last year would be the last one because I thought people would be burned out on conferences that were virtual. I thought we were kind of all zoomed out and done, but I was wrong. So speaking of listening to your audience and also being humble and realizing you don't know everything, that's a really good tip. They told me just like Barbie, no, you have to keep this conference virtual. Got to keep it going. And they gave me 100 reasons why. And like, I was like, okay, I'm listening to you. So we're bringing it back. So 2022, June 7th through 9th, we have 9 amazing speakers. I mean, I cannot tell you the lineup is impressive. And it's always been impressive. Every group of speakers I had, but this year I think it's going to be really amazing. So I do want to encourage people, if you want to talk about teaching and learning in higher education, or how people learn, to check out the conference at lecturebreakersconference.com. The other thing I'm launching is called Your Teaching Coach, and it is a mobile micro learning program for professors, educators, and instructors. And basically, the way I've conceptualized this is that each week you'll get a micro lesson. And then if you want to learn more, you can go into our community, which will include webinars and downloads and worksheets and things like that. And you can also connect with the community to keep, being inspired and supported in your teaching. And so I don't know where that might go, but I am trying to look at the market and look at the needs of our audience. And I know that my audience is so overwhelmed right now. They just are so overwhelmed. I don't have another word for it. And to be able to step out of offering, hour, 2 hour, 3 hour long courses, these big events, like they just can't take that right now. And so I'm looking for something smaller, still valuable, still based on the research, still connecting with other people, but let's do it in a smaller, bite-sized way. So that's kind of the next big thing that I'm doing. And if people want to sign up for that, I do have a sign-up list. It's free at yourteachingcoach.com.
Love it. Love it. I think that's fantastic that you were listening to your audience and doing something different, just kind of going more in that micro learning direction. So
And
that's,
it may not work, Luke. So, I mean, that's
it
another thing,
may
right?
not
We
work.
try things and it might work, it might not work. It's going to need some adjustments and feedback, but it's just kind of always staying on that cutting edge and looking for the next thing that you can contribute to.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's always my favorite thing too, is that you think that some idea is going to be a slam dunk and it's going to be your greatest YouTube video you ever made. And then no one watches it. And you're like, oh, I missed.
Yep, been there.
Swing and a miss on that one. Okay, on to the next thing. So, Barbie, final question for you. For someone who is brand new to starting this entrepreneurship journey, what would be your best piece of advice? Do you have any recommendations for folks on something they should do first, or check out a particular resource, or anything else?
Well, I think we both mentioned Pat Flynn.
You
So
sure have.
that's a resource to start with for sure if you want to build a business, any niche. And so I guess for me, maybe is maybe two things. One is to really start to surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do, right? So finding those communities, those pockets of people who are, it may not necessarily be in your same discipline or your same, business or industry, but find people who are kind of doing what you want to do so that you can hear what they're thinking about, struggling with, talking about. I listen to so many business podcasts every week while doing the dishes or the laundry or whatever, taking a walk. And so I just immerse myself into the world that I want to be in. So not physically, but just around me all the time. So that would be one. And I guess the other one is when you get to a certain point, and it's not when you like make it, but like when you get to a point with your energy or your frustration or your time, it's okay to let go of stuff, right? So it's hard to let go of stuff, but I hope that one of the messages I've shared here is like I let go of my blogging. I replaced it with a podcast. Then when my podcast became so much, but I love it still, I changed the format, and that's okay. Like I let go of weekly. Okay. And then I let go of editing, which was a huge step for me because I'm such a control freak when it comes to this. But like let go of stuff so that you can give yourself the opportunity to grow into, the type of professional you want to be.
I love it. Fantastic advice. Let's end on there. Barbie, where can
Yes.
people go to learn more about you and your work?
Excellent. You can go to BarbiHoneycutt.com. So BarbiHoneycutt.
Fantastic. Well, Barbie, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate all the words of wisdom that you shared with us today.
Thank you, Luke.
Barbie, thank you so much for once again coming on today's show. Folks, if you haven't done so already, go down into the show notes and check out all of the links from all of the resources that Barbie mentioned on today's show, talking about your teaching coach, the Lecture Breakers podcast, the new summer conference that's coming about, and literally everything else, all in the show notes. Be sure to go down there and to check that out as well. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, give it a 5-star rating wherever you are listening, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts that I am just not familiar with at the moment, but I'm sure there are other platforms. So give it a 5-star rating wherever you are listening. Also, if you have already picked up the book, What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer, and you enjoyed it, go on over to Amazon and give that one a rating as well. A bunch of new ratings have been coming in, and it's just been so awesome to read your reviews and hear about your learning experience with the book and how it's helped out and everything else too. So go ahead and give a review over on there. And last but not least, folks, if you want to check out anything else that I have, you can always head on over to drlukehobson.com. Thanks so much, everybody. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.